We are in full self-driving, version 10.11.2. We're going to drive this to northern Minnesota today, which is a 250-mile trip, one way with the Supercharger stop in Duluth, Minnesota. We're leaving at an 88% state of charge. The purpose for the drive today is to both try out full self-driving on a long road trip, and also we want to look at our range update. All right, so here we are passing through Superior, Wisconsin. On our way to Duluth, we're about 5 miles from the Supercharger. If I look at the trip meter to get our average energy consumption for the entire trip, I see that we are at 304 watt-hours per mile. For a distance of 152 miles driven so far, we've used 46 kilowatts of total energy. Our battery, kilowatt-hours, correction, and our battery is a 75 kilowatt-hour battery. Coming up on a right-hand turn, we'll be turning right, and then we'll take an immediate left and another left at the top of the intersection. So the car makes a complete stop and accelerates. We should be in the left lane to make the next turn. Everything looks good here. Got one car behind us. Car's checking for traffic. Everything looks good there. And we've got a good turn. On the last drive that I did in a previous video, coming into the Supercharger, I noticed that there's a lot of lane issues, getting into the right lane for navigating, wanting to switch lanes into the inappropriate lane. And so we're going to see how it does coming up here through this red light. We should be in the right lane in about a quarter of a mile to make our next turn, and then we'll turn into the parking ramp for the Supercharger. As much as I want to take over right now and get into the right lane, I'm going to see how the car does. One of the issues I think in the confusion that the full self-driving has is that the road up here doesn't have any lane markings on it. It is a brick road, and it isn't very clear what the left and right lane are going through this intersection. Just disengaged autopilot because we're getting a little close to that curb, and I will re-engage it here. With the 20-inch wheels, there's not a lot of margin for making curb contact, curb rash on the wheels. So to avoid damage, I took over there just to be safe. And at this point, we are at our destination. I'll go ahead and disconnect autopilot and pull into the Supercharger. All right, charging session is done, and let's see how we did. So we're ending at 92% state of charge, definitely enough to continue on our trip. $18.55, so not too bad. Apparently, full self-driving does not like when you take off your seatbelt, even if you're parked and zipping up your jacket. So that little demonstration will help people know that it really isn't possible to disengage your seatbelt, crawl out of the driver's seat while the car is driving, because it will disengage autopilot immediately. It's a safety feature that's built in. I thought the car handled that turn very well. There's the car on the left side at the intersection, just right at the edge of the intersection, and then there's a car in the right lane also turning with me, and my car found the exact path between those vehicles without getting too close to either one of them. So I thought that was pretty safe. There's a little bit of phantom braking through that intersection back there. Not sure what the car was seeing that caused concern, but it did slow down quite abruptly. So just turn back on Navigate by Autopilot, and the reason I had that off was the vehicle wanted to stay in the left lane. Every time I tried to put it into the right lane, it would signal lane change and then get back into the left, saying it was changing lanes to follow the route. Well, the route is actually to our right. We're going to be making a right turn in about 10 miles, 13 miles, to exit this highway and use another highway for the last little bit of the journey. So it actually doesn't make any sense that we're in the left lane to follow the route. And we can see here again, as I change into the right lane, it says upcoming lane change, and it will eventually get back into the left lane again. So it's a little bit of an annoyance. I'm going to probably disable the Navigate on Autopilot again. Here's lane change. Just because I don't want to sit over here in this lane unnecessarily for the duration of the trip. But other than that, we're going to do a quick energy check-in. So outside air temp is now increased to 52 degrees. For the last 30-mile average for the vehicle, we are averaging 295 watt-hours per mile. It shows us arriving at our destination with just over half of the battery charge remaining. We left Duluth with 92% state of charge, and it looks like 51% state of charge when we get to our destination. Overall, looking at the trip, our average energy consumption has been 307 watt-hours per mile. So we've used 66 kilowatt hours of a 75 kilowatt hour battery to travel 214 miles so far. All this while driving 70 miles an hour with air temperature inside the cabin set at 72 degrees since we have been at Duluth. So just go through a little time lapse here again and drive through Virginia. We'll check back in when we get to our destination. All right, so here we are at our destination. We're going to take a look at how we did. So the first thing we're going to look at is the trip meter for the total distance that we've driven. And we've driven 249 miles for this trip. Total energy used is 76 kilowatt hours on a 75 kilowatt hour battery. So this did still require a charge, most definitely, to make this range. And the average energy consumption was 304 watt hours per mile. How that compares to the overall car performance, you can see down here, total performance of the vehicle for the 40,390 miles that I've driven it is 323 watt hours per mile. This trip was 304 watt hours per mile, so our efficiency for this trip, driving in a range of 47 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, was better than the average range of the car over its lifetime so far. So it's pretty good. I would say that couple of thoughts. Full self-driving still needs a little bit of work on highways. It wants to make lane changes on a 4-lane highway into the left lane and stay there. It states it's doing that to follow the route. However, the route is straight. It's a 4-lane road, and there's an eventual right turn at the end of that. So I felt like that wasn't necessary. I did have a couple of issues with phantom braking on the trip, and it did require more attention in construction zones, requiring my hand on the wheel more. So, but overall, I would say for the last 250 miles of the trip, the car performed very well. I'm very happy with full self-driving. I feel a lot more energized when I arrive at my destination than I do with a conventional vehicle. So that's all I have for today's video. I want to thank you guys for joining, and we'll catch you in the next one.